A lot of who we are, we're born being, and then it's how is it nurtured. People are running away from who they were innately born to be to try and be something else. And that is also why I think a lot of people hit walls. You know, why you hit walls and like, why is this not happening the way that I desire for it to happen or I believe it should happen? Because we're not really centered with our Constitution.
What up, sis? Welcome home. Meet our sister, Tai Beauchamp. This woman is extraordinary. She's an entrepreneur. She's a speaker, TV host, and a wellness leader. Love, flow, grace, be is words that Tai lives by. Her story is incredible. It all starts in Catholic school. Let's get into it. What up, sis? What is up? What is up? What is up? Happy Black History Month. I told you, I promised you I was bringing the most powerful, beautiful, inspiring woman. And we got one right here. Tai Beauchamp, welcome to the home.
Letitia.
Welcome to Girl We Got This.
Thank you.
We are so happy to have you.
Thank you so much.
You literally are a woman's champ. She's an entrepreneur and she's a speaker. She's also an educator.
Yeah.
This woman does it all. I've been watching you from afar for a while. So it's a blessing to have you here in person in our safe space to really get to know who Tai truly is.
Yeah.
Every Monday, Mindset with Tai. We get the juice.
Yeah, and more than Mondays, I typically try and do morning Mindset with Tai. 4 days a week usually. You know, and it's been an incredible exercise for me. It's been therapeutic for me. It's been challenging for me, but it's also been revolutionary for me. It's been, you know, it's revealed a lot to and for me about people and humanity and the connection to humanity. I started going live on IG during the pandemic.
Yes.
And you know, it was at a time when I was really kind of going through my own healing journey or discovery journey or all of the above, and probably wasn't even moving to healing just yet. Had moved out here to Los Angeles from New York City and was definitely in a space of some depression and, you know, figuring out like what was next. And I was like, look, I have to get back into a routine. I was a former magazine editor. So at one point, you know, I was very, you know, structured in my life from an operational standpoint. And I've been an entrepreneur now. March will make 18 years.
Wow. That's, no, but you did it. 18 years is a lot of years.
Shit.
You did it,
I mean, a lot of years.
Yes.
And I have these moments like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. And thank God that I'm still here, but it hasn't been easy. But when you know, I've you know, been in media, I've hosted TV, I've produced TV, you know, and I still love doing all of that. Like I love TV, I love hosting, I love producing. But when I moved out to LA, it was like kind of like what was happening. And so I just was like, I have to get back into this routine of being disciplined around establishing mindset and also recognizing at this time, especially during the pandemic, everyone was so isolated. Everyone was so separate and not connected. And I was like, you know, didn't want to talk about fashion anymore. I'm a former beauty and fashion girl. And I was like, I want to talk about substantive things, and went live, and people started to really respond and join every single morning. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was my friend Piera Gilardi, who is one of the co-founders of Refinery 29. And she had come into the live and she was like, Tai, you're helping me get my mindset right. And she actually named Morning Mindset. So shout out to you, Piera Gilardi. I miss you, sis. And, you know, it's just taken off. And I have found so much of my own healing in the space because it's like, you know, and I invite other people in. So it's not just me talking to myself. And we're in the process of, creating a podcast. We have the Morning Mindset with Tai, the hike and experience, which has really kind of grown and expanded. And we've, hosted retreats in Bali and have had incredible events in partnership with some amazing brands at Art Basel, at American Black Film Festival, with Leading Women Defined and other conferences. And I've just been in awe of, how sometimes we think that we have to plan everything. And the truth of the matter is that, and one of my words was flow. When you're doing what you're called to do, how there is flow in that.
Yes.
And I've just been incredibly grateful, while, building another business, Brown Girl Jane.
Yes.
Our fragrance company, our clean fragrance company, that is currently sold at Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, Saks, Macy's.
Can we just have a moment for this?
Thank you.
No big deal.
Thank you.
That's how you're doing all of this.
Yeah.
How do you do all of this?
Yeah, I don't know if I always do all of this, and I think that that's part of, when you get to a place of acceptance and wisdom and flow, I don't have to do all of this. I'm really fortunate with Brown Girl Jane to have incredible business partners and, a team that is really in it.
Yes.
And, with Morning Mindset with Tai and Tai Life Media, because I still consult and work with brands and that sort of thing. I have a incredible small but mighty team in building. And it's an interesting time in my life because I'm not as spry as I once was, even though I look it.
She fine, we know.
Thanks.
When she walked in, I was like, oh.
Look who's talking.
Wow.
But, I am in a season of my life where, I don't want to work the same way that I have in the past. And one of my words for this year is make me an invitation. Like God, one, always use me and then make me an invitation. I want to invite things in. And I think that that's also like sometimes antithetical to the way that a lot of women, especially Black and brown women, have been trained and conditioned and raised to think that we have to go and hunt and make everything happen. And that has been the case, and that still in many ways is the case. But I think you also arrive at a point in your life where I don't want that to be the case. So I want to be an invitation. So how I do it all is but for grace. If I'm honest, I have moments of serious fatigue. I have moments of serious, do I want to continue to do this? And not doubt about what it looks like in the end, because I am fixated on the promise that God has given me.
Yes.
But I do feel often like, do I want to work in this way? And so sometimes there's this conundrum in that.
I totally understand. Do you feel like this? Because I have this feeling, I say this often, God didn't put me on this earth to work.
Yeah.
So I try to start translating that into things that I love, i.e., girl, we got this. Like, this is not work to me. This is my calling. This is like my life. This is my mission is to be of service to women. How do you feel that is incorporating into your life right now? Like, I feel like you're on that verge. Like, I've done the things that I needed to do now.
Yeah.
I can sit back and be of ease. I can receive.
Yeah, I mean, I want to. And I think then there's the financial side of life that requires life. And it doesn't help sometimes when you've also lived a very specific life, a very specific way. But I think that that's wisdom, right? And I think there's something different about being called for a purpose and having a role to fulfill and a role to play in this world. And a very different mindset, no pun intended, around this idea of toiling.
Yes.
And I think, when you are a Black or brown person or a marginalized person in any way who has experienced, hardship or was raised by people that experience hardship, you often, believe that it's supposed to be forceful.
Yes.
And I think that also to that point, there is a season in your life when you're younger, when you are supposed to work, not grind. I think grind culture is going to be the death of humanity.
I agree.
But where you have to work towards something, because that's how you propel, right? That's how you learn, that's how you build, that's how you grow, that's how you expand in order to then get to that place of saying, here is where I am. Everything that you're passionate about or purpose to do might not necessarily yield the profit.
Amen.
And so it's knowing the difference around that and then making the adjustments to understand how you live in that season. But I'm really excited. Like, I'm really, excited about where I am at this point. I turned 46 in January.
Wow, happy birthday, baby.
Thanks. And in turning, 46, there's a different illumination. Like, I'm like, shit, this is midlife.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. And what does that mean about the impact that I want to leave on the world? And also the impact that I want to have for my own life because I've toiled, because I've worked, because I've sown certain seeds. And so, it's exciting to get to this place too, to also have deep awareness and understanding of who I am. And then, and I celebrate those, and that's a beautiful feeling.
You should celebrate those.
Yeah.
Because I want to know, where did all of this power come from in Tai? Where did little Tai grow up in Jersey? How did she get all this strength?
Yeah, man, you want to know what my mom...
I want to know.
My mom will tell you I was like this all of my life.
Really?
And, we used to have... Y'all don't know nothing about these, but they used to be projectors.
I know what a projector is.
Like the
screen things?
The screen, but we didn't have camcorders, so it was that big reel.
Yes.
And you would literally you had projectors and they recorded me, and I used to dance, and I was always just this vibrant energy. So I do think a lot of who we are, we're born being, and then it's how is it nurtured. And I actually do think that a lot of times, especially in this day and age when so many people are consumed with what you see on social media, people are running away from who they were innately born to be, to try and be something else. And that is also why I think a lot of people hit walls. Why you hit walls and why is this not happening the way that I desire for it to happen or I believe it should happen? Because we're not really centered with our Constitution. And I'm fortunate because I was nurtured by my grandparents who saw me. Letitia, they saw me. They saw me.
I can relate.
They saw me, and they saw me deep. All three of them. I grew up with three of my paternal grandparents, my granddad, Pop, and my grandmother, Sarah, who I called Mommy. And then I called my other grandmother Mommy too, or My Mary. So because I was raised in a collective, because my parents were so young when I was born.
Yes.
My mom and I have this conversation often when she'll acknowledge I would be being me, and I started reading very early. So I started reading when I was 3. And I was really frustrated that I couldn't write. So my grandmother, in her intentionality, put me in oratory school.
Wow.
As a 3-year-old, I started taking speech lessons.
Wow.
And so it's incredible that now I speak for a living, right? I was in writing classes, from a very young age, poetry writing classes and creative writing classes. Wow. She really saw me. And I think that part of seeing someone, I can say this now, is recognizing perhaps what you didn't see in yourself or what you didn't have the opportunity to actualize for whatever reason.
Right.
And so, my grandmother raised her, and I'm speaking about Mary now, my maternal grandmother, who I also helped take care of. I was a caregiver for 13 years alongside my mother too. I became a caregiver at 28 years old.
Wow.
While running a business, while being an editor-in-chief. Wow. Mama has lived.
Yes, I know, because this strength don't come from nothing, Tai.
Mama has lived. But I do think that my strength came from being seen.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important. Strength is not something that just arrives.
Yes.
It's not a light switch moment. Now, you might have light switch experiences that bolster and enhance your strength because you're like, okay, it's a new lesson for how you're going to move in this season. And that enhances your strength and your fortitude because now you're but it's something that is cultivated.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It needs to be nurtured.
Yeah.
It needs to evolve. It needs to grow. It needs to be watered.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you say your grandparents, I relate to you.
Yeah.
My grandparents were my people.
My people.
And when I lost them just recently.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And my world shook. It's still a little shaken because I don't have my people. Those people that really saw you, that was no matter what you could do, no wrong.
Yeah.
They knew you're the greatest thing on this earth.
Yeah.
And you having that, you're right, it instilled.
From the beginning.
Being seen is so powerful. It's an essential piece of our livelihood.
Yeah. Yeah. And
we need it.
And that's why it's also, I think, important for as we seek to be seen.
Yes.
Which I pray everyone does experience. We also be intentional about seeing people.
Yes.
And I do feel like that is my gift. When I think about the skills that I have, being able to speak, being able to connect.
Yes.
But it's because I see people. Like that is really the gift. And I'm not saying that everyone, will have it the same way, but we need to nurture that. And we actually, here's the reality. Hell, we need it more now than ever in this world because so many people feel unseen.
Yes.
This is why social media is as big as it is, quite frankly, because it's an opportunity, at least a perceived opportunity to be seen if it's for a moment.
Yes.
But then the challenge with that is that what we see or what we project or what we present is not always the truth of what it means to actually really be seen.
Yes.
And so then it becomes convoluted and conflated, like and not really wholesome. But my grandparents seeing me really shifted me. And then I had incredible teachers.
Really?
I went to a small all-girls private high school in Newark. I actually grew up between 3 households because my parents weren't married. I lived with my father's family during the week, Monday through Friday. On the weekends, I went to my mother's family's house, which was about 45 minutes away. And I spent time at my grandmother's house, and then my mom had a separate house by the time she was 19. So I grew up in 3 different households. Each one was filled with love, and the values were the same, but trust me, the rules were different, right? And so I think that spoke to how I learned adaptability. And I say to younger people and even more seasoned people who, find themselves staying in the same position or not moving and doing new things, you will never become adaptable if you allow yourself to be in this consistent space.
Yes.
And, that's what I find even through the community with Morning Mindset. In my engagement with people, like people who come hiking, they're like, I've never hiked. Or you meet women who's like, I've always wanted to have a tribe of women and circle of sisters, but I never had them.
Yes.
But you have to be willing to step outside of that comfort zone. And that, experience growing up as a child, I think made me adaptable. So I can go, I'm good on any MLK Boulevard, okay?
Any MLK
I am good on any MLK Boulevard, okay? And period. I'm good on the Champs-Elysees as well.
Yes, we love her there. We love her there.
Right? So it's, but I also think that in doing so, that's also when you exercise really grounding yourself in who you are. And that's why, even when we were just chatting, the what I do, and I've been fortunate to do a lot, but I've never been hung up on it. It's never, even at the most glamorous heights of my career and professional life at different intersections, I have never felt like, oh my gosh, I'm it.
Yes.
And it's not because of false humility. I'm not doing that. There is no false humility at this point. I am uber talented. I've been uber successful. I am wonderfully gifted. And I absolutely have been blessed. But, you know, I've never defined myself by my job titles.
Yes.
And I say often, you know, you will land in a very dangerous place if you allow yourself to be defined by your job title.
So true.
Because it will inevitably change. It will inevitably shift. And if you're fortunate, it will hopefully progress. And you want to progress.
Of course.
And you actually want to be the driver of what that looks like from a professional standpoint.
When did you get Tai? When did you get in this body? When did you embody this Tai? Was it at a young age? Was it in college? Was it when you were editor-in-chief? Because I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm like, this woman is fully embodied. Sis, this is embodiment. This is embodiment. It's inspiring me. That's my word for the year, embodiment.
Thank you. I'll take it.
And it's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
To feel, to see, and to hear.
Thank you. Well, also because we've been trying to connect. And so this is like a meaningful opportunity to just like be on the couch and connect.
Yes.
You know, so dare I say, I've always had a very clear sense of who I was. I think I had a sense when I was about 4 was the first experience, and then I had another experience at 9.
4? Tell me, please.
Like I said, I was reading and speaking, and my grandmother, I was reciting like something for the church play, and I was like 4. And I remember feeling as I was practicing as a 4-year-old that I will speak to people. And I remember hearing God say that to me very clearly at 4. And then I was about 9 or 10. I must have been 9 going on 10 because I was at my cousin's 10th birthday party. And she's just like a couple months older than I am. And it was at a skating rink in Wayne, New Jersey on Route 23. Can't remember the skating rink name, but it was her skating party. And I was a good skater because in Jersey and New York, that's what you do. Like we skated in the street. Like that was our outside time. You go outside and you skate. You had the big pom-pom. So I was a good skater at 9. But I had it's so funny. I'm thinking about this. James Moore, my childhood boyfriend, I think we've known each other since we were like 2, but he was like my boyfriend, I was like 6 or 7. And I think at his birthday party, he broke his leg skating. Oh, wow. Right? So that may have been like a year before. But anyway, go back to Wayne, and I'm at Rashida's birthday party. And I'm getting onto the skating rink. And you know how you have like the walls, like the brick walls that before you go onto the skating rink. So you're like dipping in. And there was this young boy. His name was Tommy. He may have been about my age, 9, maybe 10. Cute little cherubim-faced boy with his mom. I don't know his mom's name. And I remember her chiding him to come on to go skating. And she said, Tommy, you can do it. And I remembered in that moment looking at Tommy, because I could have gone out and whisked past him. I remember saying, Tommy is important to someone. I remember thinking that in my head, like this world is, and not in that exact language, but I remember thinking to myself, like, everyone is important to somebody. So, and I think now when I take that back, what that means is that it's not all about you. It's about how you see the world and who you see and who sees you. Like, you see what I mean? So there was a connection. I certainly did not program it that way, but I distinctly remember standing there and saying, like, Tommy's mother really loves him. Wow. You know what I mean? Like,
You saw
I saw
the connection. You saw the love.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it meant something to you at 10 years old.
Yeah, 9. Wow. Yeah. It meant something to me then.
So now you're already feeling these intuitive hits.
Yeah.
You're getting to know like what this world really is about.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have the language for sure.
But you're feeling it.
Yeah.
It's a feeling. It's all energy. It's within you.
Yeah.
Some people learn it later on in life. Some people have the gift to learn it early on in life.
Yeah.
So now you're having these intuitive hits. How did this affect you as a beautiful woman growing up on the East Coast?
You know, that's a good question. I mean, my beginnings are certainly not, you know, extravagant. My grandparents, my father's family did well, and they spoiled me rotten. And, you know, to overcompensate, I think, in many ways for my parents being young parents and them being in college and finishing high school and being in college and what have you. I think I just always had a level of consciousness. And if I'm honest, and I don't know if I've ever expressed this way, but I developed a consciousness too, because again, if I'm adapting from different homes,
yes,
I had to be aware of what my Mary needed or wanted or what her expectations were. I had to be, you know, aware of what my mom and what her expectations were at her house, what the expectations at my grandparents' house, and they were all different. And so I think I was nurtured to be very conscious, and it's something that I think about now because everyone's like, oh my God, you're so thoughtful, you're so thoughtful. And I've been, you know, trying to unpack even for myself, is that a level of people pleasing, or is it just truly thoughtfulness? And I actually think I rest probably on both sides of the coin in some ways. And yet, because I also have seen through my mother's experiences and through my grandmother's experiences, who are both extremely generous, the downside of being so tending to that you don't allow yourself to be tended to.
Yes.
And so I'm learning that now, which is why my word is be an invitation. Like, I want to be tended to.
Yes.
And especially as someone who wants to give so much. So even when I think about relationship, you know, I'm single at the moment, but, you know, I'm a very generous and giving spirit. And, you know, it's not about gifts and that sort of thing, but I like to take care of. It's what I enjoy doing.
Yes.
And I do believe that a lot of women say that, but then don't acknowledge that they too want that for themselves. And let me just say.
Say it.
I want to be taken care of.
Period. And that's okay.
Take care of me and I'll take care of you. Like, you know, I want it both ways, especially in my romantic and partnered life, because I also believe that's where I am going to be more impactful in the world, and where he will also be more impactful in the world.
Yes. You deserve to be tended to.
Oh, I want to be tended to.
You deserve it.
I want to be so tended to. Let me just. I want to be so tended to.
All the girls are like, me too.
I want to be tended to, but for me to come to that realization and that acceptance has been so powerful, because what it has done for me is open up my heart and my spirit even to the possibility and to the promise that I know it will happen. And also the invitation for it to happen in small ways until it happens in the ultimate way that I desire for it to happen. So in that, I've made space for my girlfriends to tend to me. I've made space for platonic friends to tend to me. And here's what I know for sure. And if you have not listened to this podcast, I'm going to mention another one, but there was Jay Shetty's podcast, Conversation with Michelle Obama. It was so incredible on so many levels. And while the subject line focuses on what she talks about, her relationship with President Obama, the core in the opening of the podcast talks about the society and the world in which we're living that is not sustainable. And it's not sustainable because we are literally developing minds or not, because they're becoming computers and less minds actually, but we're developing systems and protocols and experiences that are less human and more technological and robotic and systemic. And that is hurting humanity. Humanity needs to be tended to.
We need to be touched.
We need to be touched. We need to be heard. We need to be felt. We need to connect. We need to love. We need to caress, all of those things. And yet we're living in a world where both, especially post-pandemic, in addition to the technology that we now have access to hyper, activity and hyper engagement of technology in our lives is deafening and really kind of like messing up this system of how we're supposed to live. And where I am in this space, and it's a word that I actually started to write on the glass that I didn't, is I really want to be human. I want to be human and I want to honor human. I put love up there because that's a force that I think is connecting and a source that is connecting. But I want to be human.
And be seen as human.
Yeah, and I want to have human experiences with other humans.
Yes, me too. With other humans at all times.
Yeah, at all times.
I don't want systematic. I don't want the AI. I don't want the robotics.
Oh my gosh, it scares me so much. And that's when I'm like 85. Like anytime it comes to dealing with that, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I can't do it. I'd like to totally become
Let's not even think about that. We'll think about that in 40 years.
No, I don't. It's coming sooner than that, girl.
I know. It's
sooner
around
than
the corner.
That. It's sooner than that.
I think Michelle Obama's interview was so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think if there's any woman right now speaking truths about human relationships, love, what it actually is and means, it's Michelle Obama.
It was so powerful.
Oh, she's
and can
so
I tell
powerful.
you, like, I've always been a huge admirer of hers.
Yeah.
How could I not be? I loved Becoming. But I was not a stan. And after that, I was like, I literally was sending that podcast to everyone. I was like, oh my gosh, she gets me, like she gets it. But it was she shared with so much wisdom and it wasn't hyperbole. It was wisdom. And I just kept thinking to myself, for this woman to have, obviously had all of the access of knowledge of what's happening in the world, it's coming from a place of understanding. And yet there was so much empathy and compassion for the human experience. And it just made me want to say to so many people, wake up. That was what it made me feel.
Yes.
And, going back to this idea of loving and being human, if we're not awake, we can't be human. If we're not awake, we can't love. And quite frankly, if we're not awake and human and loving, we can't produce. We're sending it over to the technology to do. And so, it makes me think about this cycle that is, I think is really, really challenging. And as someone who doesn't have biological children, but I have 8 godchildren. It frightens me, The
world is becoming. And a piece of me feel like it's inevitable, but a piece of me is that I believe in humankind. I believe in humanity. I believe there are people like us that do want that, and we will have pockets. Unfortunately, I do fear it coming sooner than later, but as humans do, we will adapt. As Tai does, she will adapt. She will pivot. And she will do what she has to do. You're going to find love. You will be tended to. You will be taken care of. Period. I need to hear more of, I want to hear more of the story of you becoming this editor-in-chief. It's such a power move. When did you start knowing who you wanted to become in this world in a career woman way? When did this start really being like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to get there. What was coming up for you? How did you choose that route?
Well, I started out as a biology major, so I certainly was not on my way to being an editor until at Spelman, I damn near flunked out of biology freshman year. So I took a W. I withdrew because I was like, I had never had like anything lower than a B in my life. And I was going to get a D. And I was like, okay, this is not going to work. And I sat down with my mentor, Ray Chambers, who is still very much active in my life and was the blessing of how I got to Spelman. He actually, he and his family foundation awarded me a full scholarship to
Wow.
Spelman that I became aware of on my high school graduation day. So before that, I was going to go to Rutgers in New Jersey, and Ray connected with me through my administrative director. I'm praying for you, Sister June. I am praying for you, Sister June. I'm still very active with my high school too. I went to a very small all-girls private high school. I literally was texting with my ninth grade teacher this morning. It's nuts. So
That's beautiful.
it is beautiful.
This is why you need this connection.
This is beautiful.
This is you.
This is beautiful. And if I think, and I'm just sharing this because Sister June, my high school, the teachers that teach at my high school have been there literally for, I graduated high school in 1996. So I have been out of high school for a very long time. And I'm gonna let you read and then I'll go back to, I know that we're a little bit all over the place, but this is what happens with
we're not. We're right on time.
This is from my high school teacher, Miss Piccolo, Miss Tony Piccolo.
Good morning, Tai. I read your story yesterday. You humble me, you challenge me, you teach me, you remind me of what is most important. Most of all, you love me. I thank you. Can you send that story? Because I forgot to save it. I want to share it with Miss Cap in June. Thanks for the mention for Giving Tuesday. That meant so much. Love you.
So I had, for Giving Tuesday, in my newsletter, I was just mentioning some organizations, and it's a small private all-girls high school. I think the school has less than 300 students. There were only 62 students or 65 students in my graduating class. And I try and go back to the school when I'm in New Jersey at least once a year. I come from a family of educators too, so education is just really important to me. And, I've been incredibly blessed, and so it's crazy because my high school teachers tell me all the time that I was like this even as a ninth grader. I remember being a little bit of a pain in the ass. And I was, they will attest to that too. Because I was always assured and confident.
But is that a pain in the ass?
I could be.
It could have been hard for them to manage, but you were just you.
I was just me. But it was, it was a private Catholic all-girls school. So they're sitting here like, don't do that, don't do that. I'm like, what do you mean don't do that? I'm doing it. So I've always challenged authority, but in a healthy way.
Yes.
Actually, a story I don't think I've ever told either before, Letitia. I was in 6th or 7th grade, I went to another private Catholic school. And, my grandmother, because she saw me, always encouraged me to speak my mind, obviously always respectfully, but I grew up in a household where perhaps not as much as young people question today, but if something happened, I would say, Mommy, well, why? Can you explain that to me? Help me understand. Like, those were things that I said, like, as a 6-year-old, right? Like, help me understand. It was a very different time. So I grew up like that, and having really informed conversations with my grandmother, especially, and with Mary. And, I would challenge the teachers. I would ask questions like, well, I don't understand, and I don't think that's right. Here's how I saw it. And so my name would be on the board all the time. Check mark, check mark, check mark. And there was the rule that when your name was on the board with 4 check marks, you got sent to the principal's office. And I will never, ever forget. There was one day that my name was on the board the day before with 2 check marks. But they didn't erase my name from the board the next day. And they put 2 check marks. And then I got sent to the office. And, this sister was Sister Jude, a different sister. And Sister Jude was at that school. And my grandmother and my mom were called to the school. And she was like, well, she asks questions a lot. And, she's challenging authority. And, in the Catholic school at that time especially. I mean, this was the 80s and not the 80s. Yes. This was the 80s or the early, it might have been 89 or 90. And she was like, my grandma was like, well, was she disrespectful?
Yeah.
You know, did she? And they were like, no, but she just, you know, challenges in front of the other students. And I mean, never. And she was like, this is not the school for her. So they moved me from that school.
Ooh, wow.
They moved me from that school because they wanted me to have that agency and take up space. And then I think going into an all-girls high school environment and then going to Spelman,
yes,
you know, really nurtured that.
That's special. Because they knew you weren't the problem. Yeah. She's not doing anything wrong by challenging, questioning.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I think they thought it was healthy.
Yes, no, it is healthy.
Yeah.
And they acknowledged that.
Yeah, so I'm great.
What a gift.
I was really, you know, I'm so grateful.
That's so cool.
To my grandparents and my mom. And my mom, you know, they really helped to guide me. And then they afforded me the opportunities to go to like St. Vincent and what St. Vincent did for me and introducing me to Ray, and then I got to Spelman. And so when I went to Spelman, I thought I was going to be a doctor because I think that was stereotypical. It's like, especially coming from a striving, and I say striving, a strivers type family. You know, we were growing. We were certainly not, you know, wealthy and didn't have means. We were working people, but you know, so I was taught doctor, lawyer, or teacher. Like that was it. My family worked in education was last. So I was like, okay, well, doctor, I want to help people. And God had other plans, you know, when I was about to flunk out of biology. I don't know how you're going to be a doctor with that grade, girl. I was like, I don't know how that's going to work. It was like, okay, well, let me pivot. And I sat down actually with Ray. I sat down with my mentor, and it was one of the first times I had met him because I didn't even meet him before. Like, so he awarded me this scholarship going into freshman year. I didn't even meet him until the middle of my sophomore year of college when I finally sat down with him. I was in touch with him. But when I finally sat down with him, he said, so what are you going to do? And, you know, what would you like to do? And I was like, you know, I was doing this biology thing, but it ain't working. So he's like, well, what do you enjoy doing? And that was actually his prompt. And he's an incredible businessman, a finance guy, also from Newark, and an incredible philanthropist now. I love you, Ray. We'll always love you. Well, I thank you, Ray. I thank you, Sister June. I thank you, St. Vincent's. I thank you, Miss Piccolo. I thank you, Mom. I thank you, Mary. I thank you, Michelle Hux. I thank you, Ellen Levine. I thank you, Gail King. I thank you, Amy Gross. I've been really blessed. Like, I've had champions who saw me. And that's how I got to where I was. But, you know, Ray, I sat down with him and I was just like, you know, I don't think this bio thing. He's like, well, what do you love doing? And I modeled as a high schooler. So I was modeling and I always loved fashion. And he was like, well, I hear you're a great writer. I was like, I love writing. He said, well, what about being a fashion writer? It never dawned on me.
Ooh.
You know, even though I had every Harper's Bazaar, every Essence on my wall, like as a kid, it never dawned on me. And it was with that he said, well, make a list of the magazines you're interested in. And he helped me secure my first internship.
That's incredible.
At Good Housekeeping magazine, which is owned by Hearst, the summer of my junior year. No, I'm sorry, the summer of my sophomore year. And so I interned that summer at Good Housekeeping. Then the following year, I interned at Harper's Bazaar. And that was right after Liz Tilberis had passed, the legendary Liz Tilberis. And then Hearst was developing the Oprah magazine. I stayed in touch with all of, you know, the HR people, Ruth Deem and Ellen and Michelle Hux. I still, you know, I like connecting. And so even to this day, I reach out to them and just say thank you. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
You care.
I do.
Think people can connect.
Yeah.
But when you care about people, it's a different type of connection because just listening and sitting here and talking to you and listening, you thank these people, you care about these people. It's deeper than just a connection.
I do care. I do
because you see them and they see you.
Yeah, I do care.
That's the beauty of you.
That I do care.
Yes.
And yet I feel like we all have an opportunity to care. You know?
Of course
and I think that, you know, if you want to see a different side of me, when I feel like people are careless, that I do care.
Yes.
That's my heart, you know? And so I was fortunate enough, like when I was graduating, they were launching Oprah. I graduated in May of 2000. The first issue of Oprah came out in May of 2000. Also, thank you, Michelle Hux. I found the email that I literally have a printout of the email that I was sending with Michelle Hux to Michelle Burford, who was an editor at Oprah at the time, who took meetings with me while I was yet a student.
Wow.
And I landed that job fresh out of school. I started at Oprah Magazine, I want to say 3.5 weeks right after I graduated, and worked on the 3rd issue of the magazine. So I was like one of the early hires. I was the first fashion and beauty assistant at O Magazine, and I worked in 2 departments, so it was crazy, and I bust my ass. I was the first in the office, last to leave happily. There was
it?
I mean, I felt purposed, and I felt driven, and I felt honored. And, you know, even when, I want to just say this because I think, you know, as we stand as power women, which I think is essential, there is a wonderful balance between being powerful, being conscious, being assured, and still caring, like you said.
Yes.
You know, and I totally resist and correct people when they call me sweet, because I understand what that means, you know, as a womanist. And I don't want to be sweet. I am kind. I am fair. I can be warm, but I also don't tolerate bullshit either. And I think that, you know, there sometimes is this struggle for women to show up. You know, we want to be soft at home because I want to be tended to. And then and it's not about reducing yourself to anything or, you know, stripping yourself of anything. It is about speaking to and nurturing everything and every part of who you are.
Yes.
And allowing that to show up.
Yes.
So even, you know, for example, with that, when I go back to St. Vincent, my high school, when, you know, the young girls, they're young enough to be my children. I mean, they damn near might be young enough to be my grandkids almost, who knows? But they're 14 years old, 13 and 14 years old when I'm speaking to freshmen. And, you know, they're often, you know, a little bit intimidated, and that's understandable. And I get it, but I tell these young women to stand up.
Yes.
And then I actually encourage the freshman team to have them stand up in class and speak. Because especially at a Catholic school, right? Because there's this balance of being in service to, and then still knowing your strength. And one doesn't have to cancel out the other. They both, they're not mutually exclusive, and they can live together. And so, you know, that's what I did. You know, I showed up at Oprah and bust my butt, but I was kind, I was thoughtful, I was assertive, not aggressive. I was inquisitive and curious. I was hungry. I was excited. And that was recognized. And
you own your duality.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of us don't own our duality. Because I think what you said that is so important, and this whole message was, I don't want to just be known as sweet. Because there's duality in me.
Yeah, and I don't want to be called sweet either.
Yes.
Like, I literally correct people now. Like,
I love that you do that.
When people say, you're so sweet, I prefer kind. You know? I prefer kind.
I'm like taking this in.
Call me kind. Call me kind.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Because we are the words people speak onto us. We are.
Now, I want to be sweet to someone.
Yes, baby, you will.
Baby!
You will.
I want to be sweet to you. I want to be sweet to.
But everything else is all of you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's not your responsibility to be sweet or soft or malleable for people to take you in.
Yeah.
You can own the duality. You can let somebody know, I'm kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is me.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. You're teaching me something.
Oh, thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
I think a lot of us are scared, especially as women, when we are in certain situations, owning the duality of us, from the feminine to masculine, we want to be soft or we want to be seen as this, but we are.
We just are who we are.
Yes, and there's darkness to us, and we have strength, and we have this vigor.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be seen as that too.
Yeah. There are definitely layers. I mean, and you know, what I will say about the layers of who we are, at least for me and in my own experience, is nurturing each of those layers. You know, I have an incredible neighbor, Miss Georgie. So if you go to my IG,
I've seen this.
You'll see Miss Georgie. And Miss Georgie is an 89-year-old white woman who is extremely conscious and connected. We go over to the tennis club and have breakfast. I love this. On Saturdays when I'm home, and you know, we connect. She spent Thanksgiving. She comes over to my dinner parties when I have all my friends over there running amok. And you know, the importance of exercising the various sides of you, so that way you know how to be. And it comes with ease. Part of, I think, what we experience as women especially is being told we're this, and so we subscribe to it. And then we don't allow ourselves to, like I shared earlier, experience new things in order to understand how we would show up in that way and in that space. And I exercise a lot of that. So I exercise a lot of, you know, my masculine energy in the gym. And I also had to say to myself, you know, recently, it was like, look, maybe it's too much. So maybe I need to start stretching and practicing yoga. And I did a psilocybin. Thank you. Yes. I did a psilocybin journey. And in the journey, and during the journey, I felt the need to stretch. And it came to me so clearly, like, I need to stretch. And in stretching, I'm learning some of the divine movement of the divine feminine and flow, right? I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm not a yoga person. I enjoy it when I do it, but I don't practice it. And so you have to learn ways and be willing to tap into exercise and strengthen those areas where you see your weakness or your opportunity for growth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And be open.
Yeah.
To that.
Yeah.
I think psilocybin is so important. When it's given in a right space, it allows you to see yourself at a whole different level. When you just said that I needed to stretch, in my head I'm thinking she needed to be like at ease, like opened and just at rest.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You work so hard, like it's time to just sit back and stretch.
Yeah, that's exactly
and rest
it.
And
that's
relax.
Exactly it.
That's what I thought.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And that's what it presented to me. And then, you know, something came to me so clearly about, like, you know, I had to stretch my hips. And then I went and, you know, researched like what that means when you hold things in your hips. It's very emotional.
Yeah.
So it's like there's this need to release these emotions.
Yes.
But I'm curious and excited about nurturing pieces and sides of myself that I don't know, but that's also why we need human experience.
Yes.
Because it's through those relationships that we become more aware, those trusted relationships, like, you know, obviously, which is,
It's through these stories that we become more aware of each other.
Yeah.
Because that's how we learn, through each other, through our own experiences.
Yeah.
So now you're an editor-in-chief. You become a founder of Brown Girl Jane. Bring us on this journey.
Okay, so really quickly, I'll make it super quick. So I go from Oprah, I went to work, so I was at Oprah for 2.5 years as the beauty editor. I think that was my last title, associate beauty editor or beauty editor. So I went through the ranks really quickly there after 2.5 years. Then I left and worked on a title that Essence was creating called Suede. It's no longer around, but it was a high fashion magazine for women of color. I worked on the prototypes of Suede before it became Suede, so I helped to develop that. And then Her Spot 17, and then I was hired back. I, you know, did the interview, took the test, and became the first African American and youngest beauty director in history at 17 magazine when I was 25.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, listen, I'm tired.
Say it one more time.
So by the time I was 26, I was over it. I was like, okay. It was burnout, to be honest.
Wow.
Which is
at 26.
At 26, I was burned out for sure. I mean, that industry, it was. I didn't have many devil wear product experiences. My time working at Oprah was fantastic.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed my time at Essence. 17 was a very difficult time for me, but I met the challenge. But I stayed there for a year. And then I left because there were some devil wear Prada moments there. It was a very cutthroat industry. It was a very cutthroat industry, and and I met some incredible people, and I'm still in touch with a lot of them. But it was tough. And I think also at 25, was I skilled and talented? Absolutely. Was I capable? Yes. Was I mature enough? Perhaps in some ways, but perhaps not in others, which is why it's also really important to recognize time. So I left there, and then I went and did philanthropic work with my mentor and developed a program in New York that is still operated by Rutgers called Are You Ready for Work? And it's a job readiness training program. I did some international development work in Africa as well. And I consulted with his family foundation for 8 years. I became the style ambassador for In Style magazine, which was an incredible role that allowed me the opportunity to interface with our readers as well as our clients and tell the stories through experiences. So it was experiential marketing in some ways. And I started my company at this time. It was my first company and was consulting with brands like Procter & Gamble and others. And then that led to a TV career because Procter & Gamble hired me to I became a spokesperson for their My Black is Beautiful campaign that they launched then.
Beautiful.
And so then I started hosting TV and hosting red carpets and producing and loved that work. I love content. I love storytelling. I love connecting. I don't care how I connect. I just love connecting.
Yes.
And then 4 years ago, while I was starting Morning Mindset with Tai as well, 4 years ago, as I was starting Morning Mindset with Tai, my Spellman sisters, who are biological sisters, Malika and Nia Jones, had started working on this wellness, product. And they were like, look, we're looking to really do this and make something great of it. Would you be interested in working with us? And I joined Brown Girl Jane as co-founder.
Beautiful.
And so we are a fine fragrance, clean, vegan, award-winning, more than 23 beauty awards and counting. Thank you.
It smells amazing.
Oh my! I can't wait. I can't wait for you to. Our fragrances are all meant to enhance and improve your mood. So tell me what you feel when you. What does it bring? Let it sit for a minute, but tell me what you feel when you smell and nose Lamu.
For me, smell transports me. This brings me to a garden. I feel like I'm in a valley of flowers around me. Maybe it rained, maybe it didn't. But it's so...
Oh, I love the rain part.
Yeah, because rain, the smell after, it changes everything.
So how would you, if you had to describe a mood that it puts you in?
It puts me in a feminine, soft, but grounded space.
So this is all for peace.
Yeah, relax.
Yeah. No, actually, Lamu is joyful. So it's easy. It's joyful. This is joyful. Yeah. So Lamu is all about the feeling, the ease and joy.
And me being in a garden of flowers.
I love that.
That's joy for me.
I love
that. My dream is to own a farm, and I want to have a garden of just flowers.
I want a farm too.
Yes.
I want animals on my farm.
Do you have a farm together?
Do you want animals too?
Yeah, my brother knows how to do all that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I and that's what LA brought to me, actually.
The peace.
The ease of appreciating nature in a different way. I mean, when you grow up, I grew up in the Oranges, which is outside of Newark, and 20 minutes outside of New York City, or 22 minutes outside of New York City. You just, I appreciated outdoors, and we had beautiful landscape and areas and South Mountain and all those things. But I know, she's so pretty. She's so gorgeous.
And I love
the packaging.
The product. I love the packaging. I love how it looks. I love the colors.
Thank you.
I love the font. I love the print. And it's clean.
Thank you. Yeah.
I am proud of you because I know how hard entrepreneurship is.
Oh, yeah.
It is such a journey.
It is nuts.
It is literally a roller coaster that you're choosing to stay on.
I mean, most of the time I'm choosing to stay on it. But I'm grateful, with Brown Girl Jane, I'm grateful to have my business partners.
Yes.
Which, actually business partnership has taught me a lot about partnership. It has taught me a lot about partnership in life. And it has taught me a lot about relationship. It has taught me a lot about respect. It has taught me a lot about, allowance and acceptance, as well as, true connection and partnership and what it means to build together. And so I'm super grateful.
Yes.
And I definitely know that the lessons and the experiences that I have now as a co-founder have made me a better person, but also it's training me, and it's wonderful ground for the reception of you, him.
Yes.
You're coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your partner in life.
Yeah, my partner in
Your
life.
life partner.
My partner in love and in life.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Me too.
I'm excited for you.
Me too. I really am.
I can feel you're in such a grounded space.
Yeah.
And I always feel like I prayed. So the relationship that I'm in now, I remember I had moved to Malibu after dealing with a lot of grief, and I was on my balcony and I prayed and I said, God, I'm ready for him. I'm ready for my husband. I'm ready to sit down. I was very hyper independent, very work, go. If you ask any of my friends, Letitia's always doing something, creating something, gonna do it. And I said, God, I'm ready to just sit down. Man, I remember I went to a birthday party of friends in Palm Springs, and I wasn't looking. I just put it out there. I spoke it. And there was a guy there, my friend's friend. It was his birthday party. And I wasn't checking for him. He was a handsome man. I wasn't checking for him. We played basketball together because I played collegiate basketball, and we won.
Did you?
Yeah.
Were you
I was a point guard. Yeah, I was point guard.
I played high school.
Did you? Yeah.
Where'd you play?
I played at Eckerd College. It's a D2 private college, actually, in St. Petersburg.
Very cool.
It was like our own little world.
I
like
love that.
Tiny college. All the rich kids went there from up north. Their parents had a St. Pete Beach condo. Like, it was that kind of world. So we were playing, and I wasn't checking for him.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Yeah.
He looked at me at dinner. I'll never forget this. He looked at me, and I was like, oh. Like, I see you. Like, yeah, he saw me.
Yeah.
Like, we locked in.
Yeah.
And we went and played some more basketball, and then we ended up talking to like 3 a.m.
Wow.
And I still wasn't thinking anything of it. I was just enjoying him. I like connecting, enjoying people.
Yeah.
Especially men. I love me some men.
I'm just getting to that place now.
Yes.
But continue.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, I've always enjoyed men. Let me say this. I've always enjoyed men, but now I'm just ready to really enjoy men. Like,
yes. So that was me. And I was enjoying, and all of a sudden it just started happening. And
wow.
I remember one day we had Sade candles, and he was like, what are we doing? I said, I don't know. What do you want? Like, what do you mean, what are we doing? Like, I'm enjoying you.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh God, this is him. Like, this is it. It felt so different. It was not planned. It was nothing that I was ever used to. Younger than me. And I was like, this ground, he is the ground that I asked God for. I needed the ground. I was always used to the rush, the thrill, the dysregulated nervous system relationships, the not so healthy relationships, because I was unhealthy when I was younger. And after you go through what we go through, when we sit here and pronounce like we're ready, I can't wait to
I thank you so much for sharing that too, because I think, The other thing about speaking, you know, your desires of your heart into the world. I say on Morning Mindset regularly, if you desire it, you deserve it. Now, the gotcha with that is that if it's a desire that God, universe, source, however you identify, planted it on your heart, and if there's divine alignment in the desire, if there's divine alignment in the desire, you deserve it.
Yes.
And so we can't be afraid to speak what that desire is into the atmosphere, into the universe. And then, you know, the second part of this, because I also, you know, believe strongly that, you know, faith without deeds and work is dead. Yes. You have to show up in that. Yes. And so that's where I have been, like, being intentional about that, because the other side for me, Letitia, that's hard, is I'm very introverted. So I'm actually a homebody. People would be very surprised. Yes. I know. I love connecting, but then I have to disconnect in order to refuel. Yes. I probably could, if I had the leisure opportunity to, I could read books all day. I'm not a TV watcher, but I could read or dance to music or listen to music and sit and write all day.
But that's when you get filled back up.
Yeah, that's when I get filled back. Or, you know, if I'm in the company of people that I know genuinely love me and honor me with love.
That's the best feeling.
Oh, it's so good. It is so good. And I have that, and I'm grateful for that. So I think, to your point that I appreciate, I'm in a space right now where I expect, but I'm not anticipating. I expect, I desire, but I'm not anticipating. Yes. I am in a place of being able to release and just be open to how it shows up. I also have acceptance around a lot of things. I froze my eggs when I was 35. I was one of the early adapters and adopters of freezing my eggs and talking about it very publicly. And, you know, at 46 years old, would I still love children? I think so. There are certain things about my lifestyle I don't want to change. And so I'm speaking into the universe, into the world, that I will have to be sat down. Yes. That the situation that my husband to be will be one that can not only sit me down, but stand me up too, fully in everything, and my family. So that way, you know, the lifestyle that I love and enjoy, in order to be the peace and the ease that he needs at home, you know, looks and feels a certain way. But in that, something happened, and this is recent, something happened probably about 6 or 7 months ago where I am just okay with whatever it is. You know, I'm trusting and knowing and have faith that, you know, everything will be exactly as it's meant to be and prayerfully as I desire. Yes. But it's the lack of anticipation. I expect, but I'm not like about anything right now, which is great, which I'm really grateful for.
Oh, I'm excited because this is where the magic happens.
That's what I'm hearing.
This is when, like, you're so detached from it because you already know, your knowing is so strong. You know this as Tai, like, you know, and it's on the way. My only love I would want to give to you is always be open.
Yeah, I receive
to
that.
however it shows up.
Yeah.
Because I remember overlooking him. Because I was dating. I had a few.
Yeah, of course.
I was enjoying my life.
Yeah.
And I was overlooking him. And then when I came back to my journal and what I wrote and what I asked God for, it was him. And I was like, okay, thank you. But I had to open my mind back up to, it might not be the package that I physically...
That you envision, of course. Yeah, for sure.
And that is okay.
For sure.
And that's all I would say, because that's something that I had to focus and understand for myself, was like, the focus isn't on this idea that we create in our head. The focus is what we want and desire in our hearts, that we feel.
So to that point, and I was sharing, you know, how my relationship with my business partner has wonderfully impacted me. And I want to share this, especially for the women who are tapped in and listening. You know, we have been trained usually to talk about what our non-negotiables are.
Yes.
Reframe that and think to yourself, how can you make your non-negotiables negotiable?
Yes.
And it's not passive. And I think, going back to that earlier conversation of the duality, it's recognizing that some of the ways in which we were conditioned to believe things to be were for the times in which the people who deposited that way of thinking into us and what they needed. And it's not really reflective. Like, in this day and age, with all of the war going on in the world, with genocide happening in the world, with hate happening in the world, with the disparities between the haves and the have-nots being so widened, what we need is negotiables. We need more compassion than anything. So even for me, some of the things that I was just like, absolutely not, absolutely not, absolutely not, never that, never that, never that. It's more like, well, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is sometimes not to the point where you're compromising anything of who you are. I would never, ever suggest that. Compromising your integrity, your gift, your value, who you're called to be. But dare I say that sometimes we need to reframe our thinking around what we say is an absolute no.
Yes. And you know how I learned this on a deeper level? When Michelle Obama was talking about her relationship with her man.
Girl, it was like, she's just like, I realize I can't talk to him during these times. I gotta. Yeah,
I didn't like him for these couple of years.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's the truth.
It's true. It's true.
It's the truth. We are all imperfect.
Yeah.
But I always say we're perfectly human.
Yeah.
In this imperfect world.
Yeah.
We are who we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you align with, you are going to have that negotiable. It's going to be a negotiable. It's not going to be a non-negotiable.
And that's what I do now.
Work.
That's what I do now.
Yes.
And I've also learned that even in my relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
My mom and I had a lot of healing, and still, and it's happening because once my grandmother passed almost 5 years ago, we took care of her together. She was paralyzed and bedridden for 13 years. And my mom was an incredible caregiver and tender to my my grandmother, as much as retiring early and all of that. And I think in that she lost herself. And it's understandable because a caregiver,
of course,
being a caregiver, especially to an elderly parent or grandparent, someone who raised you, is an emotional mind fuck. It's literally, it is one of those things that literally it takes you. But even in my relationship with her, I feel her growing. I feel myself growing because there were so many things, even just 2 years ago, I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now I find myself saying, okay.
Yeah.
And
because it's worth it.
It's worth it. And it also it's human.
Yes. It's the relationship with it's your mother.
It's human. It's human.
And are you learning this too? Like, as you get older, like I'm just doing my best with what I can, with what I do. And then I realized my mom was doing her best with what my dad too. My mom had me at 17, so I can relate to the young. I get it. I get it. Yeah. I get it. And I had to forgive.
Yeah.
And I had to understand that we're all just doing our best.
We're just doing our best. And, I say to my mom now, I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
And I also apologize to her because I honestly can't imagine having a child like me at the age she had me. I would have been like, and I don't want anyone, I wasn't a bad child. I was actually a very good child, but I was so inquisitive and so clear without the wisdom of being clear. And so now I think back to, some of the things I may have said, and she probably was like, what is this kid talking about? Or like, why would, and then, we capture these moments now on camera and create reels off of them. But at that time, with my mom dealing with her own things, I'm sure it was hard. And I didn't have the understanding of grace.
None of us did.
She didn't have the understanding of grace toward me. She didn't have understanding of grace toward herself because, and I don't know if your mom experienced this, but, there was a lot of shame attached to that during that time, especially.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
My mother was a 17-year-old white woman.
Yeah.
impregnated by my father, who had just got out of jail, Black and Puerto Rican. My papa, which was my favorite human on earth, was like, what do you mean you're pregnant? By who? Huh? What? So the shame was there.
Yeah.
She had the biggest dream. Out of the 4 children my grandparents had, my mother was the one.
Yeah.
And then she gets pregnant at 17.
Yeah.
So yes.
It's a lot of that. And that goes back to the compassion and the grace that we have to have. And, and here's the thing, you don't have to be perfect in it.
Yes.
You don't have to share it all the time, but be conscious of the power of it. The healing power of it, both for yourself and then for other people. And I've had to exhibit that and demonstrate that in relationship too. You know, so I'm growing, you know, and that's where I am and that's who I am. I'm a human growing and a human learning to be more of who I'm called to be.
Yes.
And I also just like to say that I'm a joy sharer and a love depositor.
Yes.
I feel
it. We all feel the joy.
It. I just love.
We feel the love, and it's pure.
Yeah.
It's very refreshing.
Thank you.
It's really refreshing.
Thank you.
I feel the purity of it. It's genuine.
Thank you.
Everything you do is from your heart, and I think people realize that. That's why you still have these relationships with your 9th grade teachers.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something before we wrap up this beautiful conversation, Tai, because we could keep going.
I know. I love it, though. I'm so grateful.
Yes, I'm so happy you came to join us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I want to ask you this. If you could see a beautiful young Black girl in Jersey right now that is going to Catholic school, what words of encouragement would you give that girl?
I mean, you know, well, I have this conversation when I go and speak to the freshman class at St. Vincent. I actually say to them, this is going to be one of your most dynamic experiences ever. Cherish it. The world is bigger than you know, because oftentimes when young people are coming from, especially urban communities, there are family members who tell them not to go away to school. I'm like, listen, go away to school. Leave New Jersey. Go away. Go away. And then I also tell them something that is really interesting, that really holds true for me. The sisters that you're sitting next to and developing these sisterhoods will be what supports you in getting through life in the most joyous times and in the most difficult times. I'm still best friends with my childhood best friend.
Of course you are.
That I went to, I mean, she's the mother of my boys. Wow. And the mother of my girls. I have 8 godchildren.
Wow.
And I mean, I couldn't imagine. So I would say, you know, this sisterhood, focus on developing sisterhood. Don't be that person who, you know, is told that, you know, I don't like women and women are bitches and they're that's not true. No. That is not true. That is only true if you show up in that. Learn to love your sister. Because in that love is what nurtures you to actually have love. The love that comes from a woman is the center.
It's the life force
of love.
Yes.
And, you know, the other thing, obviously, you know, as a believer, nurture your relationship with self. And I say self because at that age, I think it's hard to really understand how to build a relationship with God. But in relationship with self, when you really connect with yourself and you understand, you know, what speaks to your heart, what speaks to your gut and how to move, that's God speaking to you. And
that is so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to say thank you for sharing and spreading all of this love and wisdom. I'm kind of speechless because I'm taking a lot of it in. My birthday is next month, and I turn 36.
Oh, so we're
and
exactly
I sit
10
here,
years apart.
Yes, and I sit here, and I think, wow, what a woman, what a journey.
Thank you so much. Thank
and
you.
The self-awareness that you have, and the joy and the beauty that's oozing out of you when you speak, and the love that you have, I believe that's the love that you will receive. And with that being said, we are giving you your flowers, sis.
Oh, they are so beautiful.
Because you deserve them. Nona Washington
so
of Mixed Girls Flowers made these for
these are so
all of our beautiful women, because you deserve it.
How gorgeous are these? Thank you, babe.
You deserve the love, the flowers, and everything, sis, because, girl, you know we got this.
Thank you. And to you. And, you know, I just always, like, want to, what you're doing, and, I mean, we talked about this earlier. You know, people, when they see the finished product, they don't often, or spray the finished product, or whatever it is, you don't know, you know, the sweat and the tears and the struggle and the hardship and the question marks and the ellipses and all of those things that go into this. And so I want to celebrate you.
Thank you.
For being courageous enough to move on something that you feel called to do. And my prayer for you is that it really touches the lives the way that I know it already has, but the way that it will, and also that it brings you joy in abundance.
Thank you.
In abundance and its fullness, because anytime we're pouring and sharing, you know, it's about this equal receiving and sharing. It's supposed to be reciprocity and everything. So I pray you two receive, and thank you so much for having me.